Hey everyone, Chris here. In today's 5 on Friday, I'm going to do a try a chapter video. So I have never done this before, so we're going to see if I even like it. But I thought this would be fun to pick 5 books off of my TBR and read the first chapter and see what I'm thinking and see if they're books I still want to read. I have decided to do 5 books that are on my 2021 hauls list because one of my 2025 goals is to read everything I hauled in 2021 or prior. So these are the 5 books I've picked. I've got Robin Silver and the Midnight Chimes, which I believe is a middle grade fantasy. I have The Shadow of the Wind, which I believe is an adult historical fiction. I have The Tale of Emily Winsnap, which is another middle grade fantasy. I have The Book of Speculation, which I believe is a fantasy, maybe historical mystery mixed in. And then I have the Scorpio Races, which I believe is a YA fantasy, but don't hold me to that. It's been a long time since I've really looked at any of these books, and that was part of why I thought this could be fun. And as you can see, we have been joined in this 5 on Friday by a crazy bug. Anywho, I'm going to check each of these out, and then I will pop back and let you know my thoughts on each of these books and whether I think they are something that I'm going to continue or whether I think they are something I'm just going to unhaul because it's not clicking with me. So I have finished the first chapter of Robin Silver and the Midnight Chimes, and it is 9 pages. It starts with Robin telling us that if she had had a way to make her life more exciting, it wouldn't have been by seeing creatures that nobody else can see. She then explains about the first time she saw one of these creatures, how none of the rest of her family could see them. She's got 2 older siblings and 2 younger siblings, and she battled with this creature in the kitchen while her siblings and mom were there, and then her dad showed up. And I think I can safely say that I don't think I'm going to enjoy this. This first chapter didn't do much for me. It was a shorter one, because in a middle grade, 9 pages isn't that much. But I feel like just with the way it was laid out and the way the characters were reacting in the small glimpses we got of Robin's relationship with her siblings, I feel like this isn't a book that's going to get like 5 stars. I feel like it's a book that's going to get like a 3.5 maybe, which means I'll enjoy it. But ask me in a few weeks and I won't remember much. Ask me in 6 months and you'll be lucky if I remember I read it in the first place. So I think, given that it's been sitting on my shelves since 2021, and the first chapter definitely didn't do much for me, that I'm going to just unhaul it because I don't think this is going to be something that becomes a new favorite. So I think it makes more sense to pass it on and stick it in a little free library and hopefully get it in the hands of a middle grader who may enjoy it. So next up, I'm going to read the first chapter of The Shadow of the Wind. I think this one has a prologue too. So I'll read the prologue and then the first chapter, and I will be back to let you know what I thought of this one. So I have finished the prologue in the first chapter of The Shadow of the Wind, and this follows Daniel, and it is 1945 in Barcelona. He is grieving his mother, and his father is a book dealer, and his father brings him to the cemetery of forgotten books and tells him he is going to be a caretaker for one of the books, and the one he is drawn to is The Shadow of the Wind. He ends up reading it and devouring it, and the next day asks his dad if he can find more of the author's work, which leads him to talking to a former colleague of his dad's who seems very intrigued by this particular book and makes him a deal that if he brings it to the library, he will give him more information on the author and other works of his while he investigates more about this particular book. And I'm intrigued. It definitely has a mysterious aspect. I am curious about the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, about this book in particular, why it kind of drew Daniel in. Based on the back, it says it's an epic story of murder, madness, and doomed love. So I'm very, very intrigued by the first chapter and definitely think this is one I am going to keep so that I can read it at some point this year. So 2 down, 1 I'm not going to keep, 1 I am. Let's see where I end up with The Tale of Emily Winsnap. So I'm back and I have completed the first chapter of The Tale of Emily Winsnap. And this follows Emily, who has always wanted to swim, but her mom has never let her, despite living on a houseboat. And she finally manages to convince her mom to let her have swim lessons for her swim class in 7th grade. She goes to that first class and is feeling drawn to the water and ends up climbing in with the other kids who claim they are capable of swimming, and is just a complete natural, and is so thrilled that she just naturally knows how to swim until her legs kind of seize up and she can't feel them and panics. And the teacher has to kind of rescue her and says, well, it was just a cramp. She doesn't think it was a cramp. And that night, after her mom goes to bed, she sneaks out of their houseboat and gets into the water near where they live and quickly realizes that the sensation is back. Her legs are seizing up. And then realizes they're not so much seizing as transforming, and that she is a mermaid. I can see why a middle grader would like this, but I think this is a book that I have no desire to read because I don't think it's going to be something that particularly interests me. I think this is specifically going to be a book that appeals to middle graders, and I definitely have a couple of little ones in my life that I think would be very, very good for this series. I own a few other books in this series too, so I think I'm just going to unhaul all of them because the premise is interesting, and it reminds me of a Disney Channel movie where this boy ended up being turned into a mermaid anytime he got in the water. And I enjoyed the movie at the time, so I feel like if I had read this when I was a middle grader, I might have enjoyed it, but I'm not a middle grader, so it's not really appealing to me now. So we're going to take the bookmark out of this one, and I'm going to skip reading this particular series and take it off of my 2021 haul. And next up, we're going to give the Book of Speculation a go. And I think Cielo is going to help me read it. What do you think, Ellie? Oh, no, she's walking away. Anyways, I will check back in a few minutes when I have finished the first chapter of this. So I have read the first chapter of the Book of Speculation, and I am intrigued. This follows Simon, who lives near the Long Island Sound. His house is kind of slowly being washed away, or the land around it. And he has a conversation with his neighbor, Frank, who has lived there a long time and was friends with his parents, about like the house and the area as they are setting out to put the buoys back out after a storm. And we learn more about his life. He's got a younger sister named Enola who is off traveling with like a circus. And his mom used to perform in a circus and was the one who taught him how to swim and how to hold his breath underwater. And then he very casually tells us that she drowned in the Long Island Sound where he and Frank are putting out these buoys. And the curious case of how does somebody who was in a circus and whose job was to stay underwater and could apparently hold her breath for 11 minutes drown? After finishing up with Frank, he heads back up to the house and finds a package on his porch. He opens it. It's this really old book that apparently contains his grandmother's name. And he doesn't really look much more into it at that moment. He finds a message on the answering machine from his sister saying, I'm coming home in July. And that's kind of where we leave it. And I'm intrigued. I'm very, very intrigued. Based on the description on the back of the book, this book is going to tell a story of doomed lovers and generations of circus mermaids who have drowned, like Simon's mother, on July 24th. So Simon becomes increasingly worried about his sister and wonders if there is maybe a curse on his family, and his childhood friend and fellow librarian Alice is going to be looking on and being involved. And it says, what secrets are hidden in this fantastical book, and will those secrets doom or save the remaining Watsons? So I am definitely intrigued. This has definitely hooked me. I think this hooked me more than this one did. So very, very intrigued by these. And this is another one I think I will leave on my TBR. Which brings me to the last book I plan to try the first chapter of, and that is the Scorpio Races, and I have no idea how I'm going to feel about this. The others I had a feeling on, I wasn't necessarily right. This one I'm going into going, no clue. So let's read this first chapter and see what I think. So I have read the prologue and the first chapter of the Scorpio Races. It looks like it's going to be dual perspective. In one perspective, we have Sean, who kicks off our prologue and is a younger kid who introduces us sort of to the Scorpio Races and sees his father die during them. And then in our second POV, we see Puck, who is getting ready to take her horse for a brief ride. We find out that she's lost her parents, and it's just her older brother Gabe, and her younger brother Finn. Finn is hanging out in a car, even though he's really too young to be driving, and takes off and says, basically, come on, let's go. And invites her to race him on her horse Dove for the first time since their parents died. She meets him on the beach, and he beat her there, only to see one of the water horses come out of the water that are part of the Scorpio races, and they start to get into the danger of being caught unawares by one, and explaining how even though their parents tried to shield them, they knew things like a friend wouldn't come to school because a horse had killed its dog overnight, or their dad would have to drive around the body of a land horse that had been killed during a fight with a water horse. So they kind of start to give us a perspective, both POVs, on how dangerous these horses are and these Scorpio races are. And based on the description, it seems like they're both going to be involved in these Scorpio races, and it's just not for me. I get the feeling there's probably going to be some horse injuries and animal injuries, and that is not really my thing. It feels like we're probably going to see Sean and Puck develop a relationship, which I'm also not interested in. And I'm not really interested in the concept of the Scorpio races and why people would choose to race in them. And it's just not drawing me in. I think of the books I've read, this is my least favorite first chapter. So I think this is another one I'm going to pass on. So of the books that I tried a chapter of, I'm going to kind of give you an order. So I think this is the one I would be least interested in. Then I would say Emily Winsnap, because of the whole mermaid thing. It's, like I said, intriguing for the age group, but isn't something that is necessarily intriguing to adult me. Then I think I would go with Robin Silver, even though I think I might like Emily better as a character in the long run. I think that the story overall would be more interesting in this one than in Emily's. So I think I would go with that. Then the two I actually enjoyed and do plan to continue, I think I would go with The Shadow of the Wind next. And the one I am most interested in, and I'm going to add to my April TBR, the Book of Speculation, because this is the one that intrigued me the most. So I definitely plan to read this one. So there you go. There you have it. This was my first try a chapter video. So 2 books I plan to continue and 3 books I plan to unhaul. And fun fact, this one comes with at least 2 sequels. So I've cleared up a little bit of room on my shelf, brought that TBR number down a bit. I thought this would be a fun way to do it and kind of look at some of those books I've been putting off reading for whatever reason and see if I think they are worth investing the time and energy. Let me know what you thought of this and if you'd like to see me do it again in a future 5 on Friday. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me mermaid emojis, since I managed to read 2 books that in some way reference mermaids. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!